What is up, you guys? So today we are going to be reacting to a video called "The Strange Disappearance of Rykker Webb." This video was recommended by my friend Cristobal, which he said, bro, the next vid you should do about Rykker Webb. It's actually very disturbing." And I did some dig deeping. So Rykker Webb was like a 3-year-old little boy who got he was in his backyard and he went missing for 2.5 days. And then when they found him, he looked very weird, like if he aged like 4 more years. So we're gonna watch this video made by Spoogly. I will have his YouTube video in the description. Anyways, let's start watching.
About a year and a half ago, a very strange disappearance case made its rounds on social media. TikTokers, Instagrammers, and YouTubers alike were talking about the disappearance of the 3-year-old boy from Montana, Rykker Webb. Now, people go missing all the time in the woods. It's actually more common than you might think it is. But the evidence and circumstances surrounding several of these disappearances, including Rykker's, are just strange and otherworldly, to say the least. Many of the things just don't add up. So today, we're going to be discussing in depth the vanishing of Rykker Webb for those 2.5 days that he was missing, and we're going to be exploring the possibilities of what might have happened to this little 3-year-old boy in the backcountry of Montana for those days he was missing. To put it shortly, 3-year-old Rykker Webb disappeared in a small town known as Troy. Now, Troy is in Lincoln County, Montana, which is the furthest northwestern county in the state. That detail will matter later. I'm not just yapping. He was outside in his front yard when he disappeared. His father was originally out there with him, but he went inside for a few minutes to grab something. He came back out. Rykker was gone. A then 2.5-day search ensued for Rykker. The local sheriff and volunteers combed the woods around the surrounding area to try to find where Rykker went. He was eventually found, but the circumstances under which he was found do not add up to me and to many others. So that is what we're going to be examining in this video. Stay tuned and let's dive into it, shall we? The small town of Troy, as I mentioned earlier, is a small part of Lincoln County, Montana. Troy itself has just 833 residents that live there, making it a very non-populated area. Montana as a whole is known pretty much for its low elevation when it comes to mountains. It's one of the mountain states, but its average elevation statewide is only 3,400 feet, which in the grand scheme of things is really small for a mountain state. However, the elevation in Troy and Lincoln County is only 1,800 feet, so way less.
Troy, lowest in elevation, highest in recreation, 1880.
Than the already low state average. Troy itself is known for its beautiful lakes and rivers and streams, and its idyllic scenery and tributaries, and its soft rolling hills with dense forests. There are populations of bears and mountain lions and other wildlife like that you think you might see in Montana.
Obviously.
But overall, it's just a very peaceful rural town. And that is just what the Webb family loved about it. It's a very homey, remote place to raise a family and to enjoy nature. The day of Rykker's disappearance wasn't really an abnormal day. Everything was pretty usual. Rykker Webb was playing in the front yard with his dad and his dog, and they were running around.
Is that his house?
Goofing off, doing typical 3-year-old stuff. The story goes that in the middle of playing with his dog and with his dad, Rykker wanted to take a break from playing, and he wanted to go around the yard and search for bugs. Now, Rykker is not alone in his liking of bugs and interest of them. Well, I remember being a 3-year-old myself and loving bugs. I used to have one of those little toys that could suck up bugs into that little container thing. I'm sure all of you had those too. Bugs are just really fascinating to kids. So Rykker was, running around the yard, picking up rocks, digging dirt up, trying to find insects. Plus, it was in the middle of summer in Montana, a mid-June day. The weather wasn't bad. The sun was out. It was
The fact that I'm watching this video It's summer break and it's June 9th. Okay.
Perfect day for this. During the middle of Rykker's search for bugs and the turning over of rocks, his dad went back inside to look for something. Now, I really couldn't find exactly what he was looking for or why he went inside. Those details are kind of fuzzy in the case, and trust me, I combed all the research I could, but I cannot find why he went inside. We just know that he went inside. When he did so, he left Rykker in the capable hands of their dog. You know, they had a family dog out there with him. Plus, they were in a very small town near the woods. What's really going to happen? You know, your boy's just playing in the front yard with the dog. Several minutes later, his dad came back outside and was pretty stunned to see that Rykker wasn't there and his dog was acting anxious. Now, the anxious dog thing, again, is an unfor-sure fact.
How can you be a dog and not protect your, like, the people that take care of you? That's just crazy, because, like, I'm pretty sure they, like, treat the dog really good, and the dog just doesn't protect Rykker. But he said that the dog was very anxious, which, I mean, maybe he does care about Rykker, but...
fact, because only a few sources had that included. That could have been a misnomer from a reporter or a false report in general. But the dog may or may not have been acting anxious, but what we do know is the dog was there. The dog did not follow Rykker, which is pretty interesting because dogs are protective. And
that's exactly what I said. That's exactly what I said.
Typically will follow their people. Immediately after realizing that Rykker was not in the yard, he started looking around the front yard, the backyard, the wood line, everywhere that he could feasibly get himself. The dad was looking, calling out to his son, yelling his name, to no avail. He couldn't find a trace or any sign of him. It's as if Rykker literally just vanished out of thin air. After this, the horrifying reality that your son is missing began to set in for the family. The dad then told the mom what happened, and they contacted the sheriff's department of Lincoln County 2 hours after Rykker went missing. Now, this is the first...
2 hours? Bro, if I was a father and my son was missing, I would call the police instantly, like instantly. You feel me? Like, I would still look for him, but I would literally call them, like, instantly as soon as I find out. Because... man, bro, you don't know what he's going through, man. Like, what if he, like, gets eaten by a bear or something?
The first weird spot in the case for many people, because in their eyes, why would you wait 2 entire hours to call the police if your son's missing? Would you not, look for 10 minutes and then call the police? 2 hours seems extensive.
Exactly.
But then again, they might have not wanted to cause a scene or freak anybody out. It was a very small town. They didn't want to cause panic, perhaps. We don't know. But we do know that 2 hours after that, the Lincoln County Sheriff's Department was notified, and almost immediately, a proper search ensued for Rykker. A search team of 50 volunteers and policemen set out to try to find Rykker, and they combed the immediate area near the family's property and near the neighborhood. They were looking for anything. Footprints, toys, bugs, anything that could lead to Rykker at all. They were looking for it. This search began just a couple hours after Rykker went missing, and the parents called the cops. And the police force even brought in smelling dogs, and they brought in drones, and even a helicopter to try to look through the brush and search for Rykker. He was wearing a jumpsuit with dinosaurs on it, and he had red hair and blue eyes. He was a pretty easy kid to spot. I mean, he would look out of place in the woods. Trust me. Sheriff Short from the Lincoln County Police Department also issued a red alert to the neighboring counties and to people inside of Lincoln County that Rykker was missing. They gave his age, his name, his specifics of where he went missing, what he looked like, and pretty much they thought it was going to work. I mean, realistically, how far could a 3-year-old boy walk off to, The group searched for 3 hours.
So, I researched Rykker Webb, and they're saying that Rykker Webb traveled 2.4 something miles by himself, and he's like only 3, which is crazy.
3 hours with what was left of the summer sun, and they had to call it quits. Because right at that 3-hour mark, a massive, huge thunderstorm hit the area. Lightning and thunder and rain poured down, and that would pretty much dampen everything. The dogs went home, the drone went home, the helicopter went home, and it was just a few policemen on foot left to search that night. The places they were searching were the immediate wooded areas near the Webb residence. These areas were known to have wildlife such as bears and mountain lions patrolling them, and you couple that with the darkness and the thunderstorm, and the hopes are not high for Rykker at this point. And after the rain hit, the mood began to dwindle down. The next morning, the search restarted. It was June 4th, the sun was out, and it was great weather. This time, the searchers have volunteered.
So, if Rykker Webb was missing right now, hold up. It would be like 5 days from now that he was missing. If he was missing like to this day, but it looks like this was a year ago. I don't know what year, but let's just keep on.
Volunteers specifically targeted an area of woods outside of the neighborhood that the Webbs lived in. It was kind of adjacent to the south. This area, too, was known for its wildlife. There's been literal sightings of bear and mountain lion here, and it was not a safe place, especially in the summer and nighttime. As they entered this different region of the forest, they began to find a weird clue. It was the first sign of Rykker, though. They located what seemed to be strange piles of rocks on the ground. After a few minutes, it was deduced that these piles were rocks that Rykker might have been carrying with him from flipping them upside down and trying to find bugs underneath.
Wait. So, what's happening is that Rykker doesn't even know he's missing, and he's just still trying to find bugs, which is crazy.
You know, you're walking through the forest, you pick up a rock, you look under it, there's a bug, you keep the rock in your hand. It seems like he just randomly dropped these rocks in different places after he was done looking under them, and it was sort of in a way to discard them. They had no real sense of direction, so it wasn't like he was leaving a trail, but they were the first clue that Rykker had been here. This specific section of woods led all the way down to the southern border of Lincoln County to a town called Sanders County. And after scanning these woods for an entire day, the only notable thing that was found was the stones. There was no Rykker, there was no clothes, there was no footprints. These stones were all that they could find. Day 1 and day 2, the half of the first day and all of the second day yielded nothing. Now, on the morning of that third day, the long-awaited call came through to the Lincoln County Sheriff's Department. Rykker had been found. He was alive and he was inside of a shed 2.4 miles away from his house in Lincoln.
Oh my gosh, guys, look. Look how much he walked. Look. This is his Oh wait, no. I mean, this is where Rykker went missing. This is like his house. This is the area he was found. That is crazy.
The shed was located along a stretch of road known as Pine Ridge Road, and it was across the county line in Sanders County. The total distance from the yard where he disappeared to the shed he was found in was 2.4 miles. And immediately, several red flags shot up in the investigators' eyes and in witnesses' eyes as well. How did a 3-year-old kid in a onesie survive 2 full days and half a night in the woods of Montana when it thunderstormed and rained and lightninged and he had nothing to eat and nothing to drink? How was he doing this good? After Sheriff Short in the Lincoln County Police Department got that update, he himself went down to Sanders to check on Rykker, make sure it was him, make sure it was okay, and that's what he did. When he arrived, he saw a decently healthy and in okay spirits Rykker Webb. The only physical damage on the child was a few bruises on his face and a few scratches on his legs, and he was kind of skittish and shy, but Sheriff Short believes that was because he was surrounded by, men in uniforms. I guess that freaked him out. I'm sure being missing in the woods for 2 days didn't make his mental state better, but that's beside the point. He was visibly terrified until Sheriff Short assured him that they were going to take him to his mom and dad and everything was going to be okay. After that,
Yeah.
he kind of perked up, his eyes got a little bit of light in them, and he seemed more lively and more like a kid again, and not like a shell shock victim. They then put little Rykker in the back of an ambulance, and that is when this famous image was taken. The first image after Rykker's disappearance. As you can see, his eyes are huge and wide open, he looks battered, and he looks tired, and he looks terrified. Almost like he saw a ghost or something. The homeowners who found Rykker were just as shocked as...
Bro, Rykker, when they found him, compared to how he looked when he went missing, it's just crazy, bro. Why does he look so weird? He looks so different. He looks like he's like 9 instead of 3. Like, it's actually like just like disturbing. It's really disturbing.
As everybody else was about him being there. He was in a random shed on the corner of their property in the middle of nowhere. Initially, they had no idea how he even got inside of the shed because there was a door and he was 3 years old. But the reason they went to search that shed was because one day they were walking back to their property and they heard this blabbering, clamoring, murmuring noise, and they thought it was actually an animal stuck inside trying to scratch its way out. When they opened the shed, they were shocked to see a little kid frightened in the corner. Rykker was taken to his parents and to the hospital to make sure everything was okay.
Oh, look, I mean, look at him. He does not look like he's 3, man. Like, he just looks very visibly disturbed. Like, he looks like he's in distraught. Like, he doesn't look the same no more.
Was okay, and the police put together a story to try to make sense of what happened to this kid. The Lincoln County Sheriff's Department was not shy about putting a little bit of blame on the parents for neglecting their kid, but they didn't find them at fault or anything. They weren't blaming them. They were kind of just like, hey, it's not good to leave your kid unattended in the front yard in Montana. But Sheriff Short came together and made this story. His timeline of events goes like this. Rykker got bored with finding bugs in his front yard, so he walked to the nearby tree line to try to find more. The dog didn't follow for some reason, and he just continued to find more and more rocks, bobbing and weaving him through the woods. He got lost somewhere after that and ran around in an unknown direction until he eventually found the shed, and he got in the shed to take refuge from the storm. Because if you remember, that first night, late in the night, there was a big storm. So perhaps Rykker got to the shed in time, even though it was 2.4 miles away. Sheriff Short says he might have been smart enough to try to search out for shelter because of the thunderstorm, and that's how he managed to find the shed. And then he stayed there for a full day and a half on his own. That's the story the police...
That just doesn't make any sense, though. How can a 3-year-old, like, brain be smart enough to take shelter during a storm? I don't know how he survived, man. That's just a miracle. That's just a miracle. W's for the mom, parents, W's for them.
Police department cooked up. Let's discuss what might have actually happened, because that explanation doesn't really make sense on how a 3-year-old traveled 2.4 miles in backcountry Montana and ended up in a shed. The biggest issue with this disappearance is that Rykker was 3 years old, and 3-year-olds need food and water each day. They're developing little people, and they need to eat a consistent food basis and water too. And when Rykker was found, he wasn't severely dehydrated, and he wasn't severely malnourished. He was kind of just scared. Adult humans can only go about 3 full days without water before their body begins to shut down, and Rykker was almost there, but his body wasn't about to shut down. So was somebody feeding him food and giving him water? Or was something giving him water and food? We also have to assume that Rykker was terrified while being stuck in the woods. I mean, his mom and dad weren't there, his dog wasn't there, he was alone with the big trees and the scary noises for 2 nights. So how could a terrifying kid not get dehydrated and not get hungry and not get more scratched up than he was? Some take this to mean that Rykker was lured out of his front yard by a kidnapper that possibly put him in that shed and ended up leaving the scene once that red alert was sent to all the phones and all the technology in the area. Maybe the kidnapper freaked out and was like, I can't do it, so they just left him there. Rykker's
Yeah.
emotional health was also a red flag for people witnessing this case. Many said that he wasn't actually too traumatized, he was more just a little bit scared. He wasn't as freaked out as you'd think a 3-year-old would be after just being stripped away from your family for almost 3 days in the woods. He wasn't that freaked out. He was kind of just sad. So this might mean that if somebody took him or locked him in that shed somehow, that it was a person, and that person was keeping him calm in a way, or telling him it was going to be okay or something. Because he wasn't crying, he wasn't yelling, he was just murmuring when they found him. So unless this 3-year-old has more emotional control than me, somebody must have been calming him down. Now, some have said and noted that this disappearance shares a ton of similarities with other strange disappearances of young boys in the woods. Specifically, the Casey Hathaway case from North Carolina. Casey was a 3-year-old boy playing in the yard of his grandparents' house when he disappeared into the nearby woods. He went missing on a Tuesday and was found on a Thursday, 2 full days later. He was about 0.4 miles into those woods, and he was in the middle of a swampy bog thorn type area. Now, specifically, the land he was sitting on only could be accessed by swimming through that swamp, which was waist deep for the adult investigators that found him. So how did this little 3-year-old get across a swamp that's waist deep for adult men? When they found him, he was tangled in briars and was calling for his mom. He was yelling "mom" over and over again. And again, he wasn't injured that much. He just had a few briar cuts and he was a little bit dehydrated. He was soaking wet and he was also cold, but other than that, he was fine. When Casey was asked how he survived for those 2 days and how he was, okay, he said that, quote, he hung out with a bear for 2 days, end quote. So what does that mean? As you can see, that shares a ton of striking similarities to the Rykker Webb case. 2 little boys, age 3, disappear for a couple days, found in weird areas that they probably shouldn't have been able to get to on their own, and they both weren't that freaked out. And they were both healthy. The only exception is that Casey said that a bear helped him survive. Now, the bear could have been a figment of his imagination. It could have been nothing. It could have been an actual bear that he saw. Could have been a Bigfoot, for all we know. But some take that description to be a Bigfoot, or a Bigfoot-like creature kidnapped this child because they thought it was in danger, and they took care of her for a couple days and left it in a spot where predators couldn't get it. Think with me for a second. I'm getting real tinfoil hat here. This isn't my theory, but I've seen this online. What if these animals, or whatever they might be, take these kids and put them in places that they can't be harmed because they have a motherly or fatherly instinct to protect small things? If a creature like this was scanning the tree line of Rykker's house and saw him alone in the front yard, that's not a good thing. That red flag meter in that creature's head would go off, and they'd be like, whoa, that kid's in danger, he's alone. So they swoop him up, and they take him to the only place they know that's out of the elements and the predators can't get to, the inside of that shed 2 miles away. Or in Casey's case, they see that Casey's alone in the yard playing with friends, and he wanders off to the woods. So something sees it from the tree line, it swoops him up, and it puts him in the middle of this water where predators can't get to him because he's surrounded by water. Again, not my theory, but an interesting one from online. Whatever the case may be, it is very interesting and unknown how Rykker Webb got 2.4 miles from his disappearance location to that shed, and how he was physically so fine after the ordeal. He got through the weather, the animals, the terrain, and everything between, and was fine. I don't think we're going to be able to solve this case anytime soon, unless when he grows up, he somehow remembers it. His brain might try to trauma block it. Who knows? Let me know what you think happened in the comments below. I'm pretty interested to hear what you have to say. Was this a harmless...
Alright, well guys, this is the end of the video because these kids keep freaking calling me, holy crap. Alright, anyways, this is the end of the video. I hope you guys liked this video. This is the mysterious case of Rykker Webb. I do not know how he survived, but I guess you could just call this case a miracle. Derpy Lion out.